Hi, I'm Stephen Tallamy. In this video, I'm excited to be talking to the multi-talented musician Ralegh Long. Now, I've known Ralegh for about a year now, so I'm excited to be talking about the various things that he does in his portfolio, from being a solo artist, to being a media composer, to being an owner of a music label.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about the BBC comedy Ghosts, but let's first take a little bit of a trip back in time and how you got into composing for a major UK TV show.
I guess it was your typical kind of artistic sort of child thing, just kind of like spend a lot of time alone, spend a lot of time in nature, spending a lot of time writing. And I think from about at the age of like 4 or 5, I was just, I do have songs that I recorded age like 5, just nonsense, like strumming a guitar without even putting my fingers on the fretboard. And yeah, I had a neighbor who was a real like sound and video enthusiast, and he'd worked at the BBC, and he was he gave me like a reel-to-reel tape recorder, Sony 1970s one. From about the age of 8, so I would play around on that and like learning multi-tracking. So like it had a left and a right channel, so I could do very basic multi-tracking. So I would do some guitar on the left and then some tambourine on the right, whatever. And then you could actually bounce that down on the thing, I think. Or maybe I think I then bounced it off onto normal cassette and then bounced it back onto the left channel. And then I would record some vocals on the right and stuff. So yeah, just playing around with that stuff. It's really useful to have that kind of background. I feel like that was in a way my sort of self-education. Just spending time exploring sounds and coming up with solutions, I guess, to technical problems from a very basic point, like on that Sony thing. Those are the kind of, I was probably solving in the 90s problems that people had already solved in the 50s and 60s, but I didn't realize it. So yeah, it was fun.
So what happened next? Did you join any bands? Did you become a singer-songwriter? What was the journey from there onwards?
When I was at school and stuff, I had a band, and we kept going for a long time afterwards. So the band was still going even from like to sort of mid-20s or something, I think. And then that sort of morphed into a solo project because it was a way that I could tour, and if you sort of make it a solo project, you can then tour and do gigs and stuff under your own name, particularly like gigs that might not be able to pay enough for a band. So yeah, it kind of morphed into a solo thing, kind of a solo recording project / live project. At the same time, I did quite a lot of session guitar work, and then put the first album out in 2015.
Cool. So and so 2015 first album, and then you've released a number of different albums. So talk to me about that, part of how does that fit into what you do today and sort of what you've learned from that and how that sort of plays forward into what you're doing now.
The main thing is that the two sort of feed each other. So sort of just roll from one to the other. So when I'm not working on TV stuff, I'll work on solo stuff and vice versa. I mean, obviously I'm not quite in control of the schedule as much as that. But yeah, I tend to sort of just kind of work pretty non-stop, like I am recording or writing almost all the time.
Then you've also run a record label, right, where you've got other artists and stuff. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I've got a kind of modern classical label called Waterway Records, and that's just sort of grown really organically out of originally me releasing my own stuff, and then what it's evolved into is it's like a roster of people who do compose for film and TV, and it's just finding ways with them to release kind of their own artistic projects.
You got into doing film and TV. You worked on Black Pond and The Darkest Universe, and I think that was a bit of a collaboration as well. So, tell us about how you kind of got into that part of it and talk more about the collaborations you've done.
Yeah, so I guess I got into the film and TV work through the classic route of like working with directors who then went on to become, established. So when I was at uni, I worked with friends on short films and doing music for plays and stuff like that. And Black Pond was made by Will Sharp and Tom Kingsley, who sort of friends I've worked with for years, and we did Black Pond, and did that in collaboration with Arthur Sharp, who's also a film composer. And Black Pond was just, the soundtrack was just done in my living room and mixed on I think I had a Sharp hi-fi at the time.
Nice.
Just like, and hooked up to a couple of quite nice 60s Leak speakers, which were surprisingly amazing for mixing on because they're incredibly bright.
And so you're doing quite a bit of collaboration there with Arthur. How did that work? Did you work on things together? Did he take some cues? You take some cues? What was the way that worked?
Yeah, it was completely a bit of both. Like sometimes we'd have our own cues done. Sometimes we'd sit and write together, sit and record together. A lot of people in the room, and sometimes the directors would pick up instruments too, kind of thing.
So a real bohemian vibe, really, in making it, I guess.
Yeah.
So we met during the first lockdown here in the UK. I think that was part of the Composer Coffee Morning, which Manus McDade set up and Michael Price was championing. And I think at that stage you were just starting, or were just already working a little bit on the Ghosts TV show. So how did you get that gig? What was the way to get into that?
So that was, it was through Tom Kingsley, who, as I said, I worked with for years and years. Actually, I mean, I've worked with him since we were eight years old.
Wow.
We made a James Bond spoof together when we were about 12. He directed the first 2 series of Ghosts, and so he got me in. To do that.
Fantastic. But so you were in lockdown, and you were working from home, and I guess there was already been one season of Ghost done, so there was a bit of an established team around that. But so how did you kind of get into it, and then how did you cope with this sort of idea that everything was locked down and things were going to be a bit different, or was that more normal from what you've done in the past?
Life of a musician can get pretty locked down anyway. But I did go to the read through in the end of 2019.
Right.
If you've had one real life interaction with someone, then video conferencing totally comes into its own. Really, just working really closely with Tom, obviously remotely, but as I say, I've known him since we were 8, so it wasn't too difficult.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about your workflow. So I know you use Logic for a lot of stuff today. So what else? Do you record everything as acoustic instruments? Do you use sample libraries, or you're hiring out Air Studios in London? How does that bit work?
A combination, of samples and real stuff. So some real piano or some real guitar quite often, and kind of often exploring kind of textures and tones you can get out of those instruments that aren't, they're just the standard ones. So either prepared piano or, plucking the strings. Use quite a lot of EBO, especially on acoustic guitar. You can get some really amazing kind of organic but ethereal tones out of that. So just layering up EBOs on guitars. And then the rest is pretty much samples. Yeah. I think my natural inclination is to do more intimate stuff. I don't have any huge hankering to go to Air Studios and hear, obviously that's amazing and stuff, but I'm more interested in, exploring like more intimate kind of chambery ensembles, quite small stuff.
So talk me through like the process of putting together the music for each episode of Ghost. Like how long do you have to make the music for it? How do you approach each episode? What's the sort of process?
So the post-production on Ghost, it's I suppose the whole thing is that you're looking at like 3 or 4 months. What normally happens is over the course of like a week on each episode, I will sort of do a first draft, then work with the director to sort of on any notes and establish where we want to go from there, make a second draft, and then sort of send that to the producers and executive team.
And do the directors have quite an input on the sort of sounds and the style of the cue, or is that really down to you?
I think in the broad sense, they have loads of input in terms of like the the point of the cue, the emotional content of the cue, even down to like the ins and outs, like where it comes in,
Yep.
where it comes out. And we talk about instruments. Definitely, we talk about, piano's good here. Maybe these, maybe like some strings would be good here, but nothing too attacking or nothing too bright. That kind of thing.
So looking back, season 2, which was last year, do you have like a favorite episode where you really got to explore the emotions of the characters, or just had lots of fun with the music? From a musical standpoint, was there a favorite episode that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think episode 4 probably, with the flashbacks, which is a kind of flashback into Regency period England, and it's also told from different perspectives, from the different ghost perspectives. So you have this kind of like a Rashomon-esque retelling of a story, and the music kind of slightly shifts as the different characters tell the stories. But yeah, that was great. I mean, getting to write really emotive string pieces and sort of moments laced with terror. That was really fun.
I guess there's lots to play with the different characters, because you've got sort of more militaristic style of music from some of the characters, and then more emotional, and then more playful stuff as well.
There's a huge range. I mean, even in series 2, there was like, everything from like loungy kind of rock stuff on electric guitar, and there was loads of string stuff, lots of minimal piano stuff. Just a huge range. And coming up in series 3, there's even wider range. So yeah, it's been a great sort of learning experience and a great chance to experiment with lots of different approaches.
What can you tell me about Ghost season 3, or is that all completely under embargo?
What can I tell you? Do you mean from a music point of view, or?
Yeah, just tell us a bit about the music and how it's changed from the previous ones, and if there's any particular interesting storylines, or maybe there's some interesting music cues we should keep our ears out for that you really enjoyed putting together.
Yeah, I really enjoyed I think the opening of episode 3 is I really enjoyed that. There's probably less music overall in the show, but it's probably more impactful. I normally use a template, but this time around I sort of decided that maybe I wouldn't use a template anymore. And so, like, when I pull up a scene to score, I kind of just go for like, I'm trying to keep the tracks minimal. I'm like, what is the main instrument I want to use here? What do I want to use? And just go for that main instrument, add stuff around that, rather than being faced with like banks of strings and woodwinds and stuff. I just started to feel that maybe when you open up and you face that huge bank of instruments and you can just do anything, I just started to feel like maybe that was just not a very helpful way to begin. I mean, I'll probably come back to it at some point, but this time I really enjoyed just looking at a scene and going, right, well, this definitely needs some kind of ostinato string, so I'm going to start with that. And then you're like, okay, what else do I need? And maybe it's not, it's just more direct, maybe.
Yeah, kind of almost doing more with less as well. It encourages you to really think about the sounds that you're using rather than just splash everything on there.
Also nice and lightweight. The Logic projects don't get too laggy.
Yeah, so have you changed any, or have you learned some stuff about, optimizing your workflow, using Logic better? Have you upgraded your studio from those hi-fi speakers over the last period? What's new that you've been doing, to improve that part of the workflow?
Well, you've been very kind and helpful in teaching me some clever tricks with Logic, which I didn't know anything about, in terms of making the projects more lightweight, which is awesome. Beyond that, yeah, I'm constantly upgrading bits and bobs. I don't use old hi-fi speakers anymore.
So what's next? What are you going to be working on? More solo stuff, more production tracks? You got more film or TV music stuff? What's coming up? What have you got planned?
So I've got a new album coming out actually, in like at the end of October. Yeah. So I'm going to put a single out in about 3 weeks' time.
So I think what I really like is that you've got this nice portfolio of different musical activities, different things that you're doing. And I guess that can help from an income perspective and also from a creativity perspective. But have you got any advice for, any musicians out there who are wanting to get into doing, say, music composing or being an artist, or maybe being both? Have you got any sort of advice for them?
I mean, you just cannot overstate the importance of staying connected to people, and really thinking like, just keep connected with everyone. It's like people will often get stuck in one little route, and maybe they'll only know producers, or they'll only know engineers, or I think it's really important to make as many friends as you can, and not just music, but also like it's really important if you can expose yourself to directors and producers and people like that. In terms of being an artist, I mean, in many ways that's easy. Just do it. If you want to write songs and sing songs, then just write. And especially these days, like, the barriers to entry are just non-existent. You can have it up on Spotify or whatever in like a week.
Put it out there. I guess promoting it can be a bit of a challenge. So that's something I guess people need to learn a little bit about, how to promote themselves and how to market themselves, unless they're going to try and find a label to do that for them. So I guess that's one part to think about.
Yeah, it's obviously not as easy as just putting it out, because it may well not get heard at all, but it's still a good place to start. Your resistance to failure obviously has to be really high, I think, and you just got to keep going, so that when you do release something and no one cares, it's not a surprise or a problem. That was always my attitude.
Yeah, I like that. It's great. So let's finish up. We've got a few quick fire questions for you. Piano or guitar?
Piano.
CD or vinyl?
Don't care. Vinyl, I guess. No, either's fine. I'm not really into formats.
Nice. Early mornings or late nights?
Early mornings.
TV or film?
I probably prefer film, but TV, there's a lot of good TV. I'm gonna hedge my bets on that. I don't know. Maybe actually I'm coming around to TV. Belatedly, I'm joining the TV craze.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Coffee for preference.
Alison Cooper or Mike Cooper?
I can't answer that.
Yes, you can.
No. They're one entity.
One last question. So how can people listen to more of your music? What's the best way of connecting with you online?
There's my website, raleighlong.com, or which will send you to all the other places. But yeah, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify. The hurdle is spelling my name, which is probably somewhere on this video, right?
We'll get that right. We'll get some links in the description below.
I want to say a massive thank you to Ralegh for talking about his portfolio of different activities and how they feed each other. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.